pros and cons for either of them, for both noobs and pros. We're going to start with the noobs. We're going to slowly go down to the pros, obviously. Hopefully it'll be good enough. Let's go. Would I recommend... Would I recommend... I don't know. Would I, Josh? Fucking hell, man. I can't even speak the grammar. There are 4 main factions. They are located center of the map from Warhammer Total War 2. So, do note to self that this faction is that old compared to Warhammer 3. This is why I'm doing the video to see if they're still viable. Note to self, all of the factions are exactly the same, except one which has 2 units that you can recruit, which is Ogre, Pirates, and human variations of them, which you can only upgrade the human variations in that skill tree for that legendary lord. So I do recommend you choose wisely on this one, though having humans is decent because it actually means you can have more variety and they've got a lot more speed compared to, you know, walking fucking corpses. So up to you on this one. Personally, I think that's not a bad one, but I don't really know. I like playing as all of them, and Sarlastro Diafan, which is the ghost lady who you can get a massive crab for, also can spawn in one unit as her, which allows her to have cavalry, which none of the other ones have. Just be warned that these are categories that will affect your decision depending on who you desire. Most people go for Count Narculus. Note to self, the only reason people go for him is because he has 1 fucking unit, which is really nice, though it's dog shit in auto-resolve and will likely die. Number 1, the reason why I think this faction is very bad for noobs is the ability to spawn in units and basically say, fuck it, balls to the walls, and have the ability to do so. The units themselves are going to be all shit early on, unless you've killed a lot of units specifically in that region. Note to self, it also counts for allies, so your own units basically, which does mean if you lose a lot of units, you'll get higher recruitment and plentiful fucking, units, which is good. But it's also bad because if you lose a lot of units and you're not you're not going to gain as many as you would actually lose if you're just constantly auto-resolving or sacrificing several units. So do be warned, and you won't get the units you always want, I can guarantee that, and even if you do, you'll get a few of the ones, and it only goes up to a certain tier group as far as I've seen with levels, and that's with thousands and thousands of corpses. So do be warned, this is why it's bad for new players. Number 2, positives. You can learn how guns and everything else works. In a weird fact, you can learn which units can go against what. You also learn very painfully that your infantry is very bad and you have to learn to use them in an efficient way to basically hold the ground, which I guess is good for new players because you'll learn, the in and outs of basic of combat like that. Which is good if you play as other factions as humans and, as dwarves too, because dwarves also have guns. And same with Chaos Dwarves and a bunch of factions that have guns. So there is that positive. But it's not really much, to be honest. It's very difficult for this because the only positive I can really see is that you gain learning experience. Other than that, not really much else to really add. It's kind of a shame because both of the all the factions, 2 of them already have high degrees of hatred towards other factions and already gain minuses on that department. The others who basically are surrounded by elves, which is already a downside because you don't gain increased movement range on your guns until you've researched it or until you gain a random effect, which is a downside. So I mean, it's also positive because if you get them and you get them early on, God, you can wipe out the floor with them. So I do feel sorry for new players because of this department. A lot of stuff is just kind of random chance, I guess. It's kind of sucks, but other than the learning curve, there's not really much else that's good. Number 3, I think this faction is very good for pros. You'll know how the Raised Dead mechanic works. You'll know, hopefully, where to put your units in certain scenarios and how to use your environment. And you also will learn how the legendary laws work, and you are okay with the map spawn locations, because the map spawn locations are not very good, I'm going to be 100% honest. And you'll know that you need to sit there and go more center of the map, and stick to the shorelines for your economy. Because trust me, your economy buildings that you will build to try and get gold are not worthwhile. Do not do it. There's a few, but most of them are not even technically classed as the mainstream buildings. They are literally just buildings you can build. They're artifactic buildings or some shit. I don't know exactly what they're called, but that's what I'm going to call them now. Artifactic fucking buildings. Don't care. But yes, no. So that is what I recommend. Other than that, there's not really... I also do mention you do get Salty Sea Dogs and a few other monster infantry and monster units in general. I do recommend getting them as soon as you can. There is also a few endgame doom stacks, which is what people call them, and I do recommend you use at least the Rotten Leviathan one or the Count Noculus, basically Barrage, which is just Necrofest Colossus. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. And then there's also the Terrorgeist one, which is decent. It's not the best compared to the other two I've just mentioned, but that is also an option. There is also just recruiting an entire army of just vampires, if you really want to. Don't recommend it, but there is also as an option. Oh, the Mongol legendary one, where you get army of Mongol heroes basically. That's also another one. It's fascinating. Don't recommend that one either, but it is kind of funny. That is kind of about really it for like a bonus for the for pros. There's not really much else to really add, so the negatives are not very good either. Like, they're not that bad. Number 4, my last point. For pros, you will likely get bored of this faction fairly quickly. The same with most of them, but you will get bored fairly quickly. Obviously, if it's the same tactics over and over again, that's bound to happen. And it's kind of my only downside for pros. There's not really much of a downside to this faction, other than the infantry, lack of ammo and anvil, nail and anvil, fucking nail and hammer. Jesus, strategies you can do, you can't do them, and the only actual strategy you can use is literally infantry holding the line and then you shooting, and a lot of artillery, a fuck ton of artillery. So yeah, no, it does get boring quite a while. I think I do recommend for most players to, if you've played it for a good 100 hours, you probably should stop playing this faction. I'm going to be 100% honest, and it hurts me saying that because I think 90% of my hours in the game has literally been this faction, so I think maybe 500 hours, about 100 hours as this faction, as each one of the legendary lords, say not even 15 hours or so. Less than that, 12 hours each. There you go. You've probably done them all. There's no story anymore in the third game, so compared to the second one. So actually, I would recommend more of the second one if you want to get this faction as its prime. But right now, it's very bare bones and very shit. Still very broken early game and mid game. You can easily win most games and most confrontations in the game due to the ship mechanics and due to the resurrection mechanic. So yeah, no, it's a bit bare bones. It's pretty shit, but it's a good faction. If you like Pirates theme stuff, it's a good faction. I recommend listening to the theme on repeat the whole time you played it. I don't actually, you'll drive yourself nuts, but yeah, no, that's my only point really. There's not really much else to add. Anyway, bye bye. Took me 2 weeks. God, it's shite, isn't it? You can go to that settlement. You can take it over. You can claim it, and guess what you can do afterwards? You can leave it and then do the dig site thing that you can do, right, as that entire army, and get the chest, get the buried treasure chest as loot for Harkon. Please do this. I don't care if you're pro or noob. Everyone do this. It's really nice early on, and I've not seen anyone do it, and it's pissing me off. YouTubers, what the fuck have you been doing, man? Stop. You're hurting my soul.